Hello and welcome to our live stream on spiritual themes. Today's conversation is going to be around wholeness. I'm Dr. Marian Diaz, Director of Wisdom Ways.
And I'm Carly Swenson, the Communications Strategist.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us as we explore this theme together and have a little meditation time together that we share too. So I don't know. I love wholeness. I know we did a live stream on fullness, maybe in December. So this one is a good one for me too.
Yeah, I think wholeness is really interesting because, at least in my own life, I found it's kind of this catch-22, where as long as you're externally searching for something to make you whole, you can't be you can't because you're doing that. And then when you kind of stop and accept, like, okay, I'm whole now, how am I going to integrate myself with what I have and all that, and then you are whole because you're allowing it. It's this very nebulous kind of tricky thing, and then you can be whole as an individual, but then are you feeling whole in your social structures? Are you feeling whole in your community? So there's even these levels of wholeness that I think humans are bound to interact with on a number of levels.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
What about you?
I think that you hit it on the mark because in some ways, yes, it's this balance between really getting to a point where regardless of what happens out there around you, outside of you, with all of these things, that there's some part of you that's not impacted, destroyed by not having, by loss. We all go through many forms of loss and challenge and struggle. And so just stepping back to be like, I am whole as the person that I am at my age, right? And I can remember thinking when my children were young about this and just thinking just be like the most whole 5-year-old that you can be, right? Or be the most whole, full, complete,
I love that. I never even thought of that
that you can be, or
I think as a kid I just had so much anxiety, and I always felt like I was 40. So the idea of being like, oh yeah, be 10,
just be 10.
I wish I would have understood. I could have just been 10 instead of worrying about global warming or whatever. But that's really beautiful. I think too, it kind of reminds me of a while ago you said something about if it can be lost, it's not God, or something along those lines.
Right.
And I feel like that's a very, I'll take that more as it's not one or whole or being or the universe, but I really think that that way of knowing you're whole in you and what works with everything, and that if those things get lost, that's hard, and it can be devastating. I don't want to downplay any of that, but that's still knowing with your creator and your being, that you are whole in a way that you can recover, or you're whole in these ways that you can then heal and become stronger than you were even initially.
And one of the things too that I like to say, I might have even said this in the fullness video, is just that from a Christian perspective, that word that's often translated as perfect in the early Christian scriptures, right? Be perfect like your Holy Father is perfect, in the sense of God, really refers to wholeness and completion, and how we can feel potentially complete in the moment, right? And so it's not, we take it often as a moral thing, or a perfection, right? Or as a personality trait of perfectionism, of I have to do everything correct and I can't make mistakes, and I can't drop the ball or forget things or whatever, which is insane because we all do that, right? So it's not at all about that. It's just about this sense of wholeness.
I love that way more, though, thinking of yourself as being whole, just as opposed to perfect. That feels so much you can have a piece of fruit that's kind of bruised, but it's still a piece of fruit. It's still and I think perfection, while there's a beauty in perfection and stillness, it has its place, but I think as soon as you start to put it in some kind of terms that you're supposed to live up to,
Yep, another external marker.
And especially then when you get into socializing as women, how our expectations and stuff. So that really can kind of, distract you from your own wholeness, because you're trying to be something beyond what you're even really being asked to be. We just don't realize that it's all this kind of external influence there.
Yeah. So, well, good. Okay, so we're going to go into a little reflection, and I think what we'll be doing today for a few minutes is just sort of maybe knitting together the different parts of us that go into making us whole, at least some of those parts. So just invite you to settle in, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and we'll begin. So just take a few deep breaths to pause as we're starting, to begin to let go of whatever things you were concerned about before you started this meditation with us. Continue to breathe. And then just settle into how your body is feeling right now. What are you noticing? As you're feeling your breath, just also try to sense your wholeness of your body. What does that feel like? To feel the space that your body inhabits. In this time, in this moment. Just allow it to be however it is. It's all one. Know that all the different parts of your body are working together as best they can to support you and bring you energy and life. And as you continue to breathe, just think about all those vast feelings and emotions that arise in you at different times. Some more pleasant than others. Just sort of see them as a spectrum of experiences. And allow them to be. They all help comprise for us what is a whole human life. Breathe. And now bring into your consideration all the different types of things you think about. Different thoughts that you might have about, yourself, your life, the world, all those different thoughts and impressions running around in our minds. And also just allow them to be. They all too go into the creation of the whole being that you are here and now. Think about, too, all the different types of things that you do in your life, the actions that you take, maybe the habits that you have, the ways that you choose to live and show up in the world. And just breathe and let all those things be. And now just gently bring your past into the now, that collection of experiences that we all have in our lives. And lightly allow them to be. They have all brought us here to where we are now, to who we are now. And breathe. And now for these last few breaths, just settle into that sense of oneness in yourself. Integrating all these parts of ourselves. Into one beautiful, dynamic whole. Then gently and gradually invite you to come back to our shared space when you're ready.
Thank you for that.
You're
That was
welcome.
nice.
You're welcome.
It got me to, I think it's very easy for us to disown the darker parts of us and the parts of our experience that either feel shameful or like we wish we'd known better or whatever. And there really is this, I think it highlights the difference between the whole versus perfectionism, where I think with perfectionism we're taught to kind of ignore those parts of ourselves, play them down, pretend like we are clearly the like I have it all together person.
Yeah.
That, you know, society kind of puts on us. And really, like, to be whole is understanding that we have all of this that made us who we are now, and it's okay that it's there, and it can be there, and we can learn from it, and we can, kind of let things go that we don't need. And I love that, realizing, like the shadow side or whatever, like accepting that is what makes you whole. Like it's good to realize that these are all parts of us, and as soon as you really step into that, allowing it to just be, it's really just calm. It's such a calmer space once you realize like how to kind of embrace your wholeness in this way instead of chasing a perfectionism.
Yeah, and just being okay and integrating parts of ourselves that we would repress, deny, ignore, not like. I mean, not even all those actions that we've taken. Do we like? Oh, yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
Like, yep, that's part of me. I gotta own
I've grown. I'm better now.
I made that decision.
Yeah.
Like.
But it's and I think being able to look back on those past selves with that compassion of like, oh yes, you were being a 21-year-old. You were wholly being a 21-year-old. You were wholly being 30.
Yep.
And at least that's what it looked like, for me.
Yeah.
But it shows that we evolve too, that being able to look at yourself and be like, okay.
Precisely, yes, because we are wholes who are evolving, right? And growing and changing in terms of what comes next, because right now I'm at being the 53-year-old for a couple more weeks, and then it, and I, we can think and imagine and dream about, okay, what's the 65-year-old going to be? But there's really no idea. We have really no idea. And the only thing I can do now is to sort of say, yes, I am learning and growing in this wholeness, and hopefully that process will continue as long as I
think so much of it kind of just becomes these little habits of self, just those little kind of moments of meditating or reflection or whatever, and then they really do add up. So it's like when you're 65 or 40 or whatever, like you realize, like, I mean, even honestly this weekend I had this I was having a little bit of a rougher time with some of my depression stuff, and even then I was like, what a good job you're doing. Because I have these habits where like I have my little checklist. So I do my things and I feel like, hey, Carly, you got some things done. Yeah. And I now have like Ensure and meal bars. So I'm like, at least you're eating something. Like I have these little things now because I know what that consists of. I've accepted that that's part of myself. I know that who I am as a whole person is someone who occasionally has these, hiccups in life. But it doesn't scare me anymore. It's not something where I'm like, well, this is going to swallow me whole. Like, it's so liberating to have like accepted that and then be like, okay, well, it's going to be a little annoying for a bit, but I just have enough habits of like, okay, stretching, like it's kind of part of my evening routine now that I stretch. And so even if like 1 or 2 days I don't feel like it, I still do it these other days. And there are all these little things that I'm like, oh, well, you've made yourself into kind of a healthy little adult, haven't you? Good job. So I think wholeness is a very fascinating kind of theme that can be overlooked in a lot of ways, or misunderstood.
Right. And it is important, like, to think about, right, because some of the practices you listed were about, your body, right, about like moving or just making sure I'm eating it right. So it kind of takes attentiveness at different times. And that's the integrating part in terms of the actions that we take on behalf of of ourselves.
Yeah, it's like gifts to your future self that you're working on now, kind of.
Right. And you're living into, at the same time you can sort of allow yourself and accept, but still live into like, oh, I want more of that part of me, right? Like there's certain parts where we are still growing and we see, oh, that's a growing edge for me. And so
I like that growing edge. I've never thought of that. That's a very good.
Yeah, because you see, like, this is where I want to go, but I can't see across.
No, that's an interesting visual that I haven't quite. That's neat.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's another topic. So. Well, great.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any suggestions for additional themes, or if you'd like to share your thoughts or feelings on wholeness, we'd love to hear it. And come back and join us next week.
And like and subscribe.
Yes, like and subscribe.
That's right.